Are you tired of spending too much of your hard-earned money at the supermarket? Are you dreaming of farm fresh eggs, homegrown veggies, and homemade everything? Well, welcome to Ditch the Store, where we break free from supermarket dependence and take back control of our food and household essentials. I'm CJ, and I'm here to show you that life is too short for store-bought eggs. So let's get started. G'day everyone, and welcome to another episode of Ditch the Store. For those watching on YouTube, I apologise for the lighting. I don't know what is going on at the moment. It's so dim outside because it's very early in the morning. I'm doing a bulk amount of recording, so I've got 4 episodes to record today because unfortunately I am going back to my full-time job. I've been on long service leave and been really enjoying it and cracking through and getting a lot of stuff done on the farm. But at the end of the day, I can't stay on leave forever. Between finances and boredom, I've made the decision to go back. So I'm going back to work in October 2025, whenever you're listening to this. And so I've got to do a bit of a kind of a batch of everything so that I can get into work and do what I've got to do at work and not be kind of thinking in the back of my mind, what do I do at home with the home business? So episode 135 this week, CJ here on her own, and we are discussing doe-raised kids. Say that 10 times quick. Doe-raised kids. So with goat breeding, a lot of people, there's a lot of different things, and I'll say this right from the get-go. You will get completely different answers from different people about what works best, how to do it. There will always be a multitude of different ways to do things. So I just want to preface that by saying this is the way I do it. And I know that there are other people that do it very, very differently. And for the most part, I don't ever want to be critical of anybody else's decision and how they raise their kids. And I'm talking goat kids, not human kids. I'm not going to be critical of how people raise their human kids either. As a parent, that's your decision. But for goat kids, there'll be a lot of people that say, oh, no, you always do it this way. I don't like to do it like that. I like to go, you need to work with what works for you, for your circumstances, and also what makes your heart sing. You know, if you feel very strongly about not removing kids from the mother, from the doe, then that's something you need to factor in. And for me, this sounds really terrible. It sounds really harsh. It's not even about, I really want the does to raise the kids. There's a convenience factor for me of leaving kids with the doe. It reduces the amount of hands-on stuff that I need to do. And we'll discuss that shortly. But it's not all sunshine and roses. At the end of the day, animal welfare is super, super important to me. And so I always want to do the best thing by my animals. But sometimes it's also about doing the best thing for your circumstance. So some people will bottle raise kids and some people will doe raise kids. We're talking about bottle raise kids next week because it comes with its own whole different set of problems. This week, we're talking doe-raised kids. And don't think that this is not without problem. It still has a set of problems. We're dealing with it right now with a problem I'll talk about that in a minute too. But we're dealing with a problem at the moment. And so there are things you need to know if you're going to leave the kids on the goats and let them raise them, let them feed them, let them look after them. There are things that you have to factor in. So that's what we're going to discuss this week. Hopefully it won't be a super long one. So what does a doe-raised kid mean? It means that the kids nurse directly from the doe's teats. You do not remove the babies, the kids, goat kids. So I'll just refer to them as kids. If I say kids, I'm not talking about human kids. I'm talking about goat kids. If you leave the kids with the mum full time, they are doe-raised kids. Now, full-time doesn't mean that they are with them 24/7. It just means that they are with them the vast majority of the time and they are with them for feeding. So you are not supplementing with a bottle or anything like that. They are 100% drinking off the mum's teat. Now, there can be some variations in there. But Just so you know, there are some teat differences, and there's reasons why you wouldn't leave them with the doe. So milk and fibre goats, so my Angora goats that I have, my Anglo-Nubians that I have, Lamarches, Sarnans, Toggenburgs, what's the other one? I can't think. All the milking breeds have two teats. They only have two teats. If they have a supernumerary teat, which is one of those little extra bits of teat that kind of come out off the udder, that's considered to be a breed fault and is usually bred out. Now, I have a couple of goats. Willow that I lost last year, my oldest goat, she had a full supernumerary teat that used to milk out of it. So she actually had three teats, three functioning working teats. But Lucy, who's one of my main milkers, she has a tiny little supernumerary, which would still be a breed fault, but because we're not showing them, it doesn't bother me. Now, milk doesn't come out of her one. It's a very small supernumerary. I think there's one other in the paddock that's got what appears to be a little bit of a supernumerary. It is a breed fault, and most breeders will try and avoid that with breeding. I'm not worried because we're not showing. We're only using the milk for ourselves. Boer goats, and I never know whether I'm saying that right. Boer goats, Boer goats, BOER goats, who are the meat goats. So they're the goats that are white with the brown head. They have four teats, and that is a breed trait for them. And some people will try and crossbreed Boers to get the four teats. They'll try and keep that breed trait in them. So four teats obviously means they can feed four kids without any problems. With your milk and fibre goats, and I've got to be honest, none of my fibre goats have ever had more than one kid. But my milk goats regularly, just about every pregnancy will be twins. And we've had triplets on several occasions too. Now, I've also heard of 4 and 5 kids being born to milking goats. Obviously, under those circumstances, you're going to have to look at bottle feeding some of those kids. It is rare that 3 or 4 kids can survive on 2 teats without somebody missing out. So you'll end up with an undersized kid who's maybe sickly and doesn't make it. In those circumstances, you would remove the kid, bottle feed, or I'll explain later what we did with our 2 lots of triplets that we had. So your options are, and I say with the mum full time, and this is where I wanted to put a bit of a caveat on it. So if you're not milking your goats, if you're just breeding goats as pets or breeding them for meat, then the mum can be in the paddock with the with the kid full time. That being said, I would always say, and you know, people that raise rangeland goats or Boer goats, they would say, well, the kids are just out there with the mums full time. They probably don't even bring them into a barn for kidding or anything like that. But with our milking goats, we find that some of the mums can be quite aggressive to kids that aren't their own. So we like to bring the kids in and give them at least a couple of weeks to bond with mum before we send them out into the paddock. And the reason we do that is mum then becomes very protective over them. They develop a natural sense of herd, and that means that when another goat has a go at them, and they'll have a go at them, you can't stop it, they at least know they go into protective mode. So they either drop to the ground and play dead, or they run back to their mum, who then will protect them against the other goat. Part-time, which is what we do. We have them with them part-time. So once we get past that week mark, when I start milking the goats, they go part-time. So the kids are kept in a barn. We have a house that's purpose-built for the kids. So it's got a shelf in there. It's got a little water tub that they can't get into and kind of get stuck in. It has a hay basket in there. They go into that of a night time. Once they're in there, they're in there overnight on their own. And that means that they're not drinking continuously off mum overnight. In the morning, I milk mum, not completely out, but I'll milk enough, a litre usually I'll get if I'm co-sharing with the kids. I'll get a litre or so out of her, and then I turn the kids and the mum out into the paddock for the day, and they will go and do goat stuff during the day with their mum. So they are feeding at free will off their mum from 6 o'clock in the morning through till probably 6 o'clock at night. So they've got a 12-hour window to feed in, and they can just feed at free range. Now, goat mums can be very strict on the feeding. So when a goat mum has made a decision that the kid's had enough, they'll just step over the kid's head and walk off and basically refuse to let them suckle. But that is exactly that kind of setup of letting them be raised by the doe is how they would be in the wild. If you have rangeland goats, which are, some people refer them as feral goats, but they're the goats that are raised for meat and they're usually out in a massive big herd in scrubland. That's exactly how they're raised. And they don't get separated. They are, for all intents and purposes, wild animals out in the bush. The livestock people who raise them know that those goats, the strongest ones, survive. If the kids get up and get on the teat, then great, they're doing well. But they manage it themselves as a herd. Now, there's a couple of benefits to keeping them on the doe, and we'll talk about bottle feeding next week, so I'm not even going to try and touch on that too much. But the main reasons for keeping them on the doe, on the teat, is because it promotes a really strong immune system. In that first 4 to 5 days, usually in the first 24 to 48 hours, a kid will get what's called colostrum. It's a type of milk that is a little bit thicker. It's when you do milk it out, and I have milked it out when I've had girls that are just too full or when they've had a kid that's not made it. When you milk it out, it can be quite thick like syrup. It's yellower than milk. It's definitely got a yellowy tinge to it. It's referred to as liquid gold because it's so dense in nutrients and so dense there's a whole bunch of other things which I'll go through and read, but it provides antibodies for the baby. So it gives them, and humans are the same. Any mammal has colostrum when they're first milking. So that first 24 to 48 hours, that is the most important time for the kid to be on the teat. It's very nutrient rich. It's got a lot of fats and proteins and vitamins and minerals in it that kids need. And it really, that 24 to 48 hour window is the most important time, but it can last for 4 to 5 days. And each animal's different. Some you'll find aren't very yellow. It's not very thick. Others will be so thick it's like syrup. Now, it does give a better weight gain for the animals. I've found bottle babies you struggle a little bit with keeping the weight up, and that's because the mum will regulate with the kids the correct intake instead of having to measure out how much you're giving and weigh the goats to make sure they're getting the right amount. The doe will regulate how much they are drinking. And the does will, like I say, they'll naturally stop the kid when the kid's had enough by just stepping over them and walking away. And it looks a bit harsh, but it's just a mum saying, no, you've had enough milk. It's time to go do goaty things now. You've had your milk, you've got to stop, so that they don't overfeed. And bottle babies can grow faster than natural ones, but usually that's a result of overfeeding, which comes with a whole bunch of problems I'll discuss next week. And you really don't want a goat overfed. Cartman, who was raised last year, he was a singleton. He came out of a half Angora, half Anglo-Nubian that I've bred, Charlotte. And he put on so much weight so quick, we're actually worried because he was so big. He's evened out now and he's kind of the same size as the rest of them. But we end up calling him Cartman because he was so fat. He was, for any South Park fans out there, my kids were like, oh my God, it's Cartman. He's so fat. So the doe will naturally limit how much they're drinking. Now, the reason that I love doe-raised ones is because inherently I have enough to do on my plate as it is. I don't need any more work. Bottle-fed babies, you have to worry about bottles, washing, and look, you don't need to sterilize them. It's not like a human baby where you need to sterilize everything and you need to mix Milton up and make sure it air dries and all that. You don't have to go to that extent, but you do have to use clean equipment. You can't use dirty equipment. You can't use equipment that's got milk crusted on or anything like that. So there is a washing cycle that comes with it. There is a preparation cycle with making up bottles, and it's time consuming. It is actually an extra chore to add to your list, and it's time consuming. So having a doe-raised baby means that she is producing the milk that it needs in the right quantity at the right temperature, and As far as cleanliness goes, I mean, sometimes you have to watch that their udder doesn't get a bit crusty, but for the most part, their udder's going to be clean, and or what any dirt that is on there is going to have a boosted immunity for the kid as it's suckling. So it removes a whole bunch of chores having a doe-raised kid. But there is also a whole bunch of digestive issues that you don't have to think about if you have a doe-raised kid. So a doe-raised kid, it gets the correct amount, the correct mix, the correct temperature, whereas if you are bottle feeding, that you're the one responsible for that. The doe knows what her kids need. And their milk does change through the lactation stages, like all mammals. You get that colostrum in the first 24 to 48 hours, but then it moves to a nutrient-dense but not as thick milk. And then as they get older, the protein and fat levels change so that the animal is getting exactly what it needs at the right time of its life cycle. Now, obviously, it also includes leaving them on the doe will allow for the kid to have a stronger herd bonding with their mum. Sometimes doe-raised kids can be a little bit skittish with humans. Not always. If you handle them right, it doesn't happen like that. But they will form a good relationship with their mum where they will follow her around. They know who mum is. They go to mum if they're scared, if they think if there's some kind of predator nearby, they will run to their mother. The does generally, I say generally because every doe is different, generally the does will do everything right. But first-time mums, sometimes you have to give a little bit of help with. And yeah, we've just had Poppy kid. She's just kidded a little doeling and buckling, who are just gorgeous. But she's a first-time mum and she's a little bit confused about what she needs to be doing. So newborn kids have a sticky colostrum poo. It's a very bright yellow poo that they have. And it's super sticky. It's like chewing gum. And if you tread in it, if you touch it, you're scrubbing your hands for an hour trying to get the smell and the feel of it off. It gets stuck to everything, including little kids' bottoms. The does are supposed to clean the kids' bottoms themselves, so they lick at it, which I know most people would be grossed out by that, but it's an animal trait. It's what's coming out is just milk poo. It's got nothing else in it. And they'll lick at their bottom to clean their bottom, and that also stimulates them to go to the toilet again. They usually do it when the kids are feeding. Now, not all mums do it. Poppy didn't do it. We ended up having to soak the little boy's bum to get some of the yellow poo off because it's so sticky. It sticks to their hair and everything, and you can't leave it there. If you see one with a sticky yellow bum, you need to get some toilet paper or tissue paper, damp it down. You can use a little bit of like vegetable oil, like an what do they call it? A non-propertied oil. So I wouldn't necessarily be using eucalyptus oil or anything like that. That could be a bit sharp on them. But vegetable, something oily, treat it as if you're removing chewing gum. Basically, that's what you're doing. You're removing chewing gum because that's the texture of it. And you just put a little bit around the hair and it just stops the poos from sticking to the hair as much. It will make them a little bit dirty. If they're out in the paddock, they will get dirt stuck in the oil, obviously, because that's what happens. But if it stops the poo sticking and the mum isn't cleaning it, that's your best course of action. But hopefully the doe will do the right thing and clean their bottom. Sometimes they do, sometimes they don't. It only lasts for a couple of days, the yellow poo. And then once the yellow poo goes, they go to a normal black poo. They do a little black poo when they're first born. That's what's been in their tummy while they've been in utero. But then the yellow poo is your colostrum poo, and then they'll switch over to normal poos after that. But it can take a week for the yellow poo to go. And it literally sticks like chewing gum to everything. So it's a bit of a nightmare. But just keep an eye on that to make sure the doe is doing that, cleaning that up. Now also, the doe may not let the kids suckle. And that's not that she's not a good mum. It's just that she doesn't know what to do. So in Poppy's case, Poppy hates her teats being touched. And we've been working towards it because she is a milking goat. We've been working towards touching her teats. But she's always been not comfortable with them being touched. And it's something she's going to have to learn to do because she is one of my milking goats. So she's going to have to get her teats touched. And we've been touching them for the last 4 days. But the first couple of hours, she didn't want the kids, every time the kids went over to her ninnies to suckle on the teat, she would step over them and move away. So I ended up having to hold her, and the handy helper helped me, and my daughter helped as well, and we held her up against a wall, and I literally, the kids had a really strong suckle reflex, so I just literally held them under the udder and held her legs so that she couldn't move. And once they started suckling, she realised then what was going on, and she stopped, and she started standing there for them. That being said, both kids are now suckling off the one teat because they don't necessarily feed at the same times. And we now have an issue with one of her teats where it is too full and I've had to start stripping milk out of it. Now, if you have to do that, if you have to strip out milk in those first couple of days because an udder is too full, that's fine to do that. You don't want a full udder. It will end up in mastitis or some other kind of infection. You do not want that. So you do have to strip the udder out if they're not drinking off it. Say in the circumstance where you only have one kid and one udder was not being, they were favouring one. I'm going to try something today where I tape over the udder the teat that they're both suckling off to try and force them to go to the other teat because they just keep doing it. She needs to let them go to both teats. And sometimes you have to help the doe with that because they don't always get it. They don't always realise what they're doing. And it's a beneficial thing for them because they will end up with mastitis or some other infection in that udder if they don't clear it out. So I've been stripping the milk out of her of a morning and of a night and trying to encourage the kids to drink out of both teats during the day. But I'm going to have to take affirmative action to get the kids to go to both udders. And it may be a case of taking the kids off her for a couple of hours and then putting them both back in at the same time. And then both of them are going to want to drink at the same time. And obviously they have to use the other teat for both of them to drink at the same time. So you do need to watch them in the first couple of days to make sure that everything's working. Now, once you get to a pattern, and I'm not worried about Poppy with that teat because I've had it happen before where that's happened where a kid has continuously gone to the one teat or two kids have gone continuously to the one teat. I know that as they get bigger, that will even out and they will both want milk at the same time and they will go and go crazy on both teats. So I'm not worried about that, but you do have to watch them over that period until that settles, until they get into a real rhythm with it. You will sometimes need to strip the milk. If you do strip the milk in the first week, I would suggest you freeze that because chances are that still has some colostrum in it. If you have to strip in the first 24 to 48 hours, definitely freeze it. That is liquid gold and you want to hang on to it. But even up until that 4 or 5 day mark, you can keep it and freeze it. I'm now keeping the milk because we have 2 bottle babies going at the same time. I'm now keeping Poppy's excess milk because I'm going to feed that to our bottle babies to reduce the amount of goat's milk that I'm having to purchase to feed them, which is not ideal. And if I can get them all drinking off Poppy's milk, then if we don't have goat's milk until Lucy kids, well, so be it, we don't. So long as the kids are all fed, that's the main thing. Now, there's a couple of issues that come with doe-raised kids because at the end of the day, if you're looking at a milking goat, and we are primarily talking about milking goats, Angora goats don't have an oversupply of milk. So generally with the one kid born, even though they might favour one side, they'll generally go to the other side when that side's empty. So they'll sort themselves out, and I've not had a problem with any of my Angoras. I think I've had to milk out one of them when she had a supersized udder and it had a very small kid, but it didn't take long for the kid to work out that the other teat had milk in it as well and start drinking from both. But challenges that you may come across with milk sharing is that you will have a less consistent or less quantity milk supply for you. And that's something that you have to work out. Like I said at the beginning, you have to work out what's going to be best for your circumstances. Commercial dairies, and I make no qualms against commercial dairies. They are serving a purpose. Livestock are there, in my mind, livestock are there to serve a purpose to us. How we raise them and how we manage that has to work for us financially as well as emotionally, as well as physically, all those things. So commercial dairies are serving a real purpose, and it's a great purpose. They produce milk for those people that can't have goats or cows themselves. Now, the only commercial goat dairies that I'm aware of are super good at this, but they raise all the babies, once they've had the colostrum in that first 24-hour period, the babies are removed from the does and they are bottle raised. And the reason for that is they can get a really good, consistent milk supply out of their does if they're not co-feeding babies. No shame on the commercial dairies, like I say. They are serving a purpose. And without them, you wouldn't be able to buy goat's milk in the shop, essentially. And goat's milk is actually available in Australia raw. It's the only milk that you can buy raw. So, cow's milk is still deemed as illegal. You can buy vape, but you can't buy raw cow's milk. But raw goat's milk is available in Australia. And so without the commercial dairies, you wouldn't have access to that. But it does muck around with your milk supply. So I usually, once I get into a rhythm with it, I will get about a litre off each doe of a morning, and then the kids go on it. Now, the kids will have a quick feed and drain her dry, and then she won't let them get back on for a couple of hours. And that gives her udder a chance to fill back up with milk. So when they do feed again, they're still getting a good dose of milk. And I'll go through how often they feed so that you know. But I think I go through that in my bottle fed one. So, but they feed 5 times a day usually, up to 5 times a day when they're newborns, and then they come down to like 4 times a day, then 3 times a day. Now, that's for bottle fed. Doe-raised kids will sometimes feed more heavily than that because they'll just go and help themselves when they're hungry. And it's up to the doe then to regulate that. And she'll regulate it. She might let them get on, have a little suckle, but then she'll step over them and keep going and go, no, you don't need any more than that. Now, one of the other issues you'll have is when weaning time comes, because obviously bottle babies, you can manage the weaning because you are the one supplying them with the milk. But with the does, they're supplying the milk, and you do have to manage how they wean them. Now, if you're milking the girl, I leave the kids on the whole time that I'm milking. I don't wean until after I finish milking. And the reason for that is because if I have to go away for the weekend, I want to know that I can leave the doe and the kids together in the paddock, and she's not going to get mastitis. She's not going to get a full udder. The kids will drain her. It will muck up the milk supply. Milking is a supply and demand situation. The more you milk, the more milk you'll get. And when you stop milking, when you don't take that excess 1 litre out each morning, they'll stop producing that excess 1 litre. And it can be hard to get back to it. So you don't want to take time off. I generally won't book any time away in my milking season. If we're going on holidays, we go when the goats are dried up. And I milk for probably 7 to 8 months of the year and then dry them up. So over winter, we're not milking at all. And if we're going away, that's when we're going away. But weaning off doe-raised kids can be a little bit more difficult because you're usually dealing with a bigger kid who might be a bit demanding about not being weaned. And they can get a bit cheeky about it, and they can even, keeping them in a separate paddock. I've seen kids have their heads go through and mum's back up to the fence, and the kid is still drinking off mum through the fence. So you really have to separate them completely. Now, when you do that, there will be noises attached to that. There will be screaming. There will be temper tantrums. Goats will not be happy that they are being taken off the boob. They will want to keep drinking. The mums, does, most of the does that I have will self-wean at some point if you leave them with them. So my Angora girls that I don't milk, if I leave the kid with them full time, they will get to about that 7 or 8 month mark and they will just cut them off. They will just stop allowing them to drink more and more. And sometimes they'll go in, you see them go in to have a drink, and the mum will let them have like 2 suckles and then just step over them and walk away. It's like, yeah, go on, you can have it. No, change my mind, you're done. So most goats will self-wean at some point. If you're weaning, if you're removing them so that you can milk, just be mindful that if you've had kids with the mum full time, like during the day, and you milk of a morning, that you will need to milk twice a day. And the reason for that is because the milk that kid has been drinking all through the day has got to go somewhere. and you don't want your girl getting mastitis. So it's, if you take the kids off after, you can remove kids at the 12 to 16 week mark. You could remove them pretty safely. They would have grown enough to survive. I wouldn't do it before 12 weeks. Some people do. I wouldn't. I prefer to wait till 16 weeks if I have to remove them. But then you need to milk in the afternoon as well. So be prepared for that. Now, doe-raised goats can be more doe focused than human focused, but honestly, I haven't found that a problem. All the kids that we've had here that are doe-raised, we handle them a lot. We handle them overnight when they're going in. We handle them during the day out in the paddock. The kids will go and play with them, human kids. We do spend a lot of time with the kids, so they're not shy around us. But bottle raised kids generally are more human focused. The 2 bottle babes I've got will follow me around like I am their mum. Whereas Poppy's 2, who are being raised by her, they don't follow me around. They'll run up to me and they have no problem with me, but they don't follow me around like the other 2 do. But handling is really important. If you're going to leave them with the doe, you need to handle them so that they're not skittish, so that they're not shy of humans. And one of the only other risks that you really have to worry about if they're doe-raised kids is the parasite risk. Parasites are spread from host to host. And when I'm talking about parasites, I'm talking about internal and external parasites. Goats get lice, and certainly all of our kids have had lice at some point. All of our goats have lice. We have hair fibre goats, so they are prone to lice, and they pass that on to the milking goats. So we have powders that we put on them, and the powder I use is a powder that's suitable for milking goats, and it goes on the fibre goats as well. But realistically, I need to step up and use some chemicals on the fibre goats to try and really blitz their lice issue, because fibre goats are more prone to lice than milking goats are. But it will pass to the kids. So you have to be mindful of that. Now, some people will recommend using Doe-raised earth to get rid of a lice problem in kids. I find it just isn't strong enough. It just doesn't do the job. So the stuff that I use is a powdered form of lice powder that you can use on chickens and also on milking goats. It's safe for milking goats. And I sprinkle some of that on them. You don't want the parasite load to get high on the kids because it can really impact their health. Now, the other parasites are internal parasites, which... the frigging, I fucking hate it. Barber's pole worm. It is the bane of my existence. I have lost maybe 4 goats now to Barber's pole worm. It is just so hard to eradicate. You have to rest paddocks for like weeks and weeks and weeks in order to get them, free of Barber's pole worm. It's a real pain in the ass. So having doe-raised kids, they will get parasites off their mum. And that can't be helped. If they're out in the paddock with the other goats, they will get parasite load off them. You just have to manage it. And Barber's pole worm, I could do a whole episode on Barber's pole worm. It is such a nightmare. In fact, I might do a whole episode on it. But you need to monitor all goats. So don't just think about it as, the kids are going to be more susceptible to a parasite. You need to monitor all the goats, mums, kids, the lot. And the best way to do that is, it's called FAMACHA. It's capital letters, FAMACHA, which is a way of checking their eyelids and their gums to see if they are anemic. If they're anemic, then you need to do a worm count on their poo. Once you do that, then you decide on what worming paste to use. Now, milking goats only have a set number of liquid worming pastes that can be used on them in Australia. Many of the ones that are used for sheep for Barber's pole worm can be used on goats, but they can't be used for milking animals because the withholding periods are not set. They're not cleared. They're not cleared for milking animals. So with milking animals, you really have to think about that paddock rotation idea of taking them out of paddocks and resting paddocks. And there's a whole protocol for resting paddocks against Barber's pole worm, depending on the temperature in the area that you live. The colder it is, the harder it is to eradicate. Guys that live up in Queensland and places like that, you'll be able to eradicate it in weeks. For us, it's months, anywhere where it's cold. And I think I will do an episode on Barber's pole worm because it really is, it's the bane of most small livestock owners' existence here in southern Australia. Okay, some practical tips. Night weaning. So I start at about the 1 week mark where I start putting them away, locking them away overnight. in a pen, somewhere safe where they can't hurt themselves, and then they go back out to mum in the morning after I've milked her. Now, like I say, you milk a litre out of them, and in most cases they will hold some milk back to give to the kids. So you're pretty safe that you won't strip all of their milk out. It would be a rare goat that would drop all their milk down. You'll notice that you'll see the kids when they go on, they'll bang the udder with their nose. That's them signalling to mum to let more milk down. And generally, we used to do it when I used to milk a cow. I used to go up there and tap on her udder to try and get her to drop more milk down. So I milk the doe in the morning, usually between 5 and 6 I'll milk, and then put the doe and the kids out into the paddock for the day where they spend the whole day together. And then of a night time, around 6 o'clock, the kids come in. And it's funny, the kids get to know when you start walking up the paddock to bring them into their stable. As soon as they see you coming, they'll run over to their mum and get on the teat and drink. And that's fine. They're having their last drink before bed. They get into a habit of doing that, and it's really good. It works well. So I just repeat that process the whole time. Now, if I have to go away, I can leave the kids with mum in the paddock overnight. We don't have a huge predator problem here because we have a Merima dog, a livestock guardian dog. If you have predators, then maybe lock mum and the kids away because you don't want to come home to a dead kid because a predator's got in. And an adult female goat will have a go at a predator, but if she's got twins or triplets, it can be really hard for her to defend all of them. Handling kids, definitely spend time scratching, leading them, touching them, touch their teats if they're a girl and you're planning on keeping them. Touch their teats, because we just did not do it enough with Poppy and we're now paying for that. We'll get there in the end. I've had goats that haven't wanted to be milked and I've brought them around. Poppy's probably the worst we've had. And I milked her this morning out of one udder, and it was hard work holding her. She kicks. She doesn't want you touching her udder. So, but it's good to have them where they're very well handled for things like hoof trimming, injections, worming, leading if you need to move them from paddock to paddock. You want to handle them. Don't let them just become paddock goats where it becomes really hard to handle them. Like I said, Poppy's struggling at the moment, and look, it's our own fault. We should have got her into the stand more often and handled her teats more often so that she knew that this was coming. But she has calmed down a bit in the last couple of days. She let me milk her out this morning, so it was a little bit of kicking, but she stood there for the most part. Now, doe nutrition. When they are raising the kids themselves, you need to be mindful that they will need more than other goats. And so sometimes it's better to segregate nursing mums away from the rest of the herd so that you can manage the feed that's going into them. At the moment, Poppy's getting A-grade quality lucerne hay, which I think my overseas friends call alfalfa. She's getting that A-grade level of hay because she needs more nutrition and she needs the roughage in her tummy too. But she also gets lactating goat pellets. And what I've found is that the lactating goat pellets are cool foods, not hot foods. I find that grain with corn and barley and stuff like that in it tends to, end up having problems with acidosis, which is a bit of too much heat in the stomach, and they can't ruminate on their food well enough. And they end up with gas, and not bloat necessarily, but they just don't, it affects their stomach and it can kill them. You can lose a goat to acidosis. So minerals, they get a salt lick, like a mineral block that I let them lick on. Now, I heard somebody say the other day, I was listening to a program about goat health, and somebody said that the blocks aren't any good because goats don't have rough tongues and they can't get access to the nutrients. My girls bite the blocks. They actually bite chunks off and chew it and eat it. So I don't know what their goats are doing, but loose minerals are good too. If you can get loose minerals, that's good too, because then they just lick at it. Now, Poppy the other day, for the first time ever, they say give them a free access to bicarb soda as a mineral because goats need bicarb soda in order for their rumen to work. I've always offered free range bicarb soda, and I've never seen a goat actually go over and lick at the bicarb soda. And the other day, Poppy did. She went over and licked at the bicarb soda. I was like, oh my God, that's the first time I've ever seen that. But loose minerals is a good option for them, especially for milking does, because they can get really run down. Make sure that they've got a good quality feed. So look at the lactating pellets that you're giving them, or the grain if you choose to do grain. It's usually called a goat mix. And make sure that it's good quality protein in there, because you really want them to not have that energy depletion. They're feeding babies, they're giving you milk, and they're trying to run their own body at the same time. You will have to hand feed. I've never had a milking goat that's made it through the milking season without hand feed. It's not practical. You really need to make sure they've got enough. Now, the best thing you can do is be constantly monitoring them, and you will know if they're getting run down because they'll start losing weight. If they start losing weight, they're not getting enough feed. You need to put some weight back on them. Now, you don't want a fat doe, but you don't want bones sticking out either. I mean, a lot of my milking girls are very, very fine framed, and they don't carry the weight, like they won't carry a lot of weight like a meat goat will, but you still don't want them. If you can see ribs, they're too skinny. You want them so that there is a layer of protection over them, essentially. They're not fat, but they're covered. If that makes sense. That's probably hard to describe. Like I said, you can wean anytime after the 12 weeks, and I would gradually do it if you want to reduce stress. Fully separating, you just got to be prepared to milk twice a day. Otherwise, your girl's going to end up with other problems. But like I say, I keep my does with their kids until 7 or 8 months, because that allows me, if an emergency comes up and I can't milk for a couple of days, I can put them in the paddock and know that the kids are still drawing milk out of the mum, which means she's still producing milk. And then when I get back, at least I can still segregate the kids and get some milk out of her. What else? I've got here, extended nursing prevents mastitis when you can't milk twice a day. Yeah. And mastitis is the worst. We've only ever lost one to mastitis, and we tried everything. The vet tried everything. We were injecting antibiotics. We were injecting into the udder, and it just was such a bad infection. It's a nightmare, and you have to get on it really quick. And I will say, keep an eye on your does. Please don't try and use one of the home remedies for mastitis. Mastitis in humans as well as in goats and cows, any animal, is a serious infection, and it can kill an animal. If you think they have mastitis, you need to go to the vet and get mastitis antibiotics, and there's a tube of stuff you get that you have to insert it into the end of the teat. And don't worry, it's not hard to do. I did it the first time, and we'd never had mastitis ever before. It's actually quite simple too. It's a small kind of syringe tube, and you push it up and through the teat and inject it into the teat. With Alice, when she had it, and we just couldn't save her. The infection was so bad, and we did try everything, and it happens. So please don't try home remedies. Go to the vet and get proper antibiotics for them. Okay, so that's all I wanted to talk about with doe-raised kids. We will talk about bottle-raised kids next week. I prefer to doe-raise than bottle-raise, and I want to say it's because I'm lazy, but it's not. It's a lot more work, but I also find that for me, I feel that it's better for the does to raise their own kids, because I'm not a commercial dairy. I'm not, it's not about milk quantity for me. It's about ease, what fits into my lifestyle, and what can work for me to have a day off if I have to. And I've done it before where I've just had a day off where I just want to sleep in. Christmas Day, quite often, I won't milk on Christmas Day. I'll say no. And I still sometimes, if I'm here, I will still remove the kids from the mum and then just let them go back out into the mum in the morning without milking, just so that I can have a day off. So you've got to work out what's going to work with you. Now, bottle-raised babies, there's a lot more work involved, but sometimes it has to be that way. If it's a commercial setup, yes, it has to be that way. If mum is sick or something has happened to her, like we lost Sage 2 days after she kidded, I have no choice. I have to bottle raise these kids because there's no other way to do it. You've got to work out what's going to work for you. And I would say don't feel bad about bottle raising. Don't let anybody make you feel bad about bottle raising, because if that's what works for you, then go for it. But if you can doe raise, I would always recommend doe raising over bottle raising if there's an option. Anyway, that's it for this week. Have an awesome week, and I will talk to you all next week. Bye for now. Well, that's it for today's episode of Ditch the Store. If you're loving the journey to self-sufficiency, be sure to subscribe. You can also leave a review for us or share this episode with a friend who's ready to break up with their supermarket. If you've got questions or success stories, we'd love to hear about them on the socials. You can also find me at www.mojahomestead.net. Until next time, keep raising, growing and making. And remember, life's too short for store-bought eggs.